At that point, Daisuke lost it. He started to scream a sound so terrifying that it created fear within anyone close by who wasn't close to his level of power. Robert and Luigi were startled by the abrupt burst of power. They were expecting to crush Daisuke's spirit, allowing them to use the merchant's formation technique to put him under a seal that would force him to follow all of their commands. But instead of that, it caused Daisuke to be able to overcome the poison by forcing his body's source energy to flow faster and in greater volume than ever before. Having been at the peak of level 2 for 5 months, possessing only the mantra for power up to the peak of level 2, and only being self-taught with no special supplies to help his power grow fast, Daisuke shouldn't have been able to suddenly make a breakthrough to a level of power he doesn't have the method to reach. But with the intense emotions raging inside him to get out, it created a path for his body to do the impossible and start to reach level 3. With no time to wait, Daisuke stood up, pulling against his chains. Seeing this, Robert and Luigi grow pale, not expecting two things, which were this turn of events, and one other thing. The only time they have ever felt this level of power in the city was one person, and they were scared to compare Daisuke to that man. Sounds of grinding metal begin to be heard as Daisuke is putting his all into getting his hands on the two people in front of him. Robert and Luigi quickly back up away from Daisuke, and they call the guards and their hooded figures to subdue him before he gets free. The crowd, which had been silent until now, were scared of the unexpected change in plan. Robert had all these people here to witness his demonstration of subjugating the strongest slave in the city to prove that he was worthy of being an overseer like his father. But to their surprise, it was clear that Robert no longer had a grasp on the situation. People began to run for the exit, and chaos grew as Daisuke was growing closer and closer to a new height in power. While the guards and hooded figures tried to stop Daisuke, it was like trying to put out a burning house with a cup of water. All of their blows didn't even make him flinch when they land on him, and even the arrows that were a danger to him a few minutes ago were barely able to pierce his skin anymore, as they were comparable to level 2 peak power. As the seconds counted down, Daisuke was getting closer and closer to breaking free. At that moment, Daisuke was drunk on his own power, thinking that he could crush his enemies with a wave of his hand. Crushed by this surprised attack, Daisuke found himself slightly buried into the ground with blood flowing from his new wounds and several of his bones shattered. No longer having the power to resist due to all his source energy being knocked out of him, Daisuke was truly without any more means to turn the situation around. After a few seconds, the massive word disappeared, and from the crowd suddenly a plump, middle-aged man dressed in extravagantly fine clothing slowly walked towards Robert, Luigi, and Daisuke. Upon seeing this man, Robert and Luigi got down on one knee and bowed to the man. "We pay respect to Master," they said. Upon reaching them, the man named Edward Colston, commonly known as the Merchant, looked down on Robert and said, "I can't believe that I actually had to intervene to stop this slave from causing a mess." The Merchant continues to say, "I have high hopes for you, my boy. If I didn't have to intervene and you had put this slave under control, you could right now have been one of my most esteemed overseers by passing this test. But seeing how you weren't able to prepare enough so that any surprise wouldn't have thrown your plan into disorder, you clearly aren't ready enough." Seeing the disappointment in the Merchant's eyes, Robert touched his forehead to the ground and said, "I am deeply ashamed of myself, sir. No excuse can pardon me for my grave mistake. I will accept any punishment that you see fit." From disappointment to joy, the Merchant's facial expression had changed due to enjoying the personal growth he felt Robert had just gone through. "Enough. The fact that you have accepted your mistake is enough for me. These mere slaves aren't worthy of you receiving a punishment," said the Merchant. Robert was truly happy in this moment, ever since he was a child. The merchant was always so nice to him, and he was the one who showed him the joys of dominating others and making them grovel below their feet. He never understood why the merchant was so good to him. He always assumed it was because they had the same source weapon ability and source element ability. While it wasn't uncommon for people to share one of those abilities, it was extremely rare for people to have both at the same time. While these thoughts were going through Robert's mind, the merchant looked to Lu Ji and said, "Even though the plan didn't completely work, we still were able to turn this problem into a gain. Seeing how this slave was able to almost reach level 3 with just his emotions running wild, we now have a solution to reaching even greater power. With you by Robert's side, I have full confidence that you will both go far, but also take this as a lesson to never relax until the job is fully done." "Understood, master," said Lu Ji with her eyes looking down. Unlike Robert, she had no relationship with the merchant, as this was the first time he had ever been this close to her, so she knew not to make any mistakes in front of him, because they wouldn't be tolerated. Seeing how smart Lu Ji was, and knowing that she knew the best way to interact with people above her, he was satisfied that she would make a good wife for Robert. "Since you have completed your task, I can now tell you that I have found the remnants of your family hiding and plotting to take back their kingdom. Knowing that you both wouldn't totally fail me, I have already contacted them, and we will be able to make an alliance with them once they arrive to come see you."